Hi, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be going over a warm-up, exercises, and stretches that are designed for massage therapists. Now, if you're not a massage therapist, that doesn't mean that these exercises and movement patterns won't benefit you, so feel free to try them out. And as always, if you're new to starting an exercise routine, be sure to check with your doctor first just to make sure that you are ready for it. When you're ready, we're going to get started. We'll need at least a strap. You can also use a band for this first part, but the rest of the workout will be a little hard without a strap. And you're going to want to grab a mat because we're going to get down on the floor for some of our exercises. We're going to start with the warm up. And this is designed to do before you meet with your clients so that we can lubricate the arms. We're going to start with the band up overhead, and we're just going to bring that band all the way up and back and around. And you can walk your hands out further on the band if you need to get your arms all the way back and behind you. And we'll do this about 8 times, forward and back. And I just like the number 8. It's a nice even number. You can do more or less if you feel like you're getting warmed up quicker, or if you want to just spend a little more time with that exercise, you're welcome to do so. And then we'll bring the band back up overhead, and then we'll drop the arms over to the side, kind of pulling down the band to stretch the opposite arm. And we're not going to be there very long because we're doing a dynamic warm up, dynamic stretching. So we're just going to kind of go side to side. And you can also get your hips a little bit involved, so you can bring your feet closer together and push your hips off to the side. And we'll do this again about 8 times, so 4 times to each side, whenever you're ready to be done. All right, last one. And we'll drop the strap for now. And we're going to bring our arms back behind. We'll do one arm overhead and one arm back behind, and we're just going to switch. Taking some nice big deep breaths, spreading the fingertips apart. And make sure that you find a really comfortable position for these shoulders. Taking your time, going nice and slow if you have any injuries. And we'll do this about 8 times here. And we're done. We'll move on to the legs. And I like to start doing this one up against the wall. You can also use your table. If you don't have good balance, I definitely recommend using a wall. And we'll start off in a pose that you guys are probably all familiar with. If you do massage, we're going to be in a lunge position, but we're going to keep the back toe or the back heel, lifted. So both toes are going to face the front direction. Your ASIS points, they're both still facing this front direction here. The front knee is just a little bit bent. And then we're just going to rotate the back leg so that we're dropping that heel down into a lunge position. And this is actually called Warrior One in yoga. The front knee is still going to stay straight towards the front toes. So you always want to make sure that that knee is over the toe. It's okay to bend it a little more if you want to bend your knee over your toe and your legs are strong. That's totally fine as long as it doesn't bother you. And then we're going to take that back leg and we're going to keep rotating it out towards the wall or whatever space you're in. And you can step this front foot in a little bit if that's uncomfortable on that back leg. Again, nice deep lunge position if you're getting ready for your day. And then we're going to turn both toes towards the wall and slightly angled out, coming down into a deep squat position. And then we'll just repeat that on the other side. So coming out of that squat position, turning the right toes forward, letting the back toes turn towards this wall. So that right hip pointer is pointed right over the toes and the knee. The left hip pointer is turned out. And then we'll turn that back foot in, coming into this Warrior One position again, and rotate so that the heel lifts again on that back foot. And then we'll just kind of repeat that. And you can go at your own pace. You can go quickly. You can take your time and move through each step nice and slow. And this isn't the workout. This is just to get your legs mobilized, to get the joints up here working. You can bring your arms out if you'd like or hold on to the wall. And we'll do this about 4 times or until you feel like your hips are loose. Just watching your toes and your knees, make sure they're always following each other and staying in alignment. And if you're a yogi, all we're doing is going from crescent lunge, warrior one, warrior two to goddess pose. So if any of that seems familiar to you, it definitely is the same type of body mechanics. We'll do one more. Hopefully you're starting to feel your legs warm. Take your time and breathe. Good, and finishing here. And then I like to do hamstrings because we're in that lunge position all day. Those hamstrings get super tight. So I like to take a leg out in front. And you can do this a couple of different ways. I like to alternate. You can swing those arms down, but we're going to send our butt back first. So hinging from the hips, reaching down towards the toes, keeping that back nice and flat. You can reach down and bring your arms up and over if you'd like, or you can just simply reach down and switch. Just stretching out the hamstrings dynamically, taking some nice deep breaths. And we'll do this about 8 times. As you get really good at some of these exercises, you can start to increase your repetitions to 10 and even 12. Once you get it to about 15 repetitions, you might want to start to think about changing the workout or changing the weight. 15 is a lot of repetitions to do, but if it feels good for your body, go with it. Last one here. Whew, and we're done. So hopefully you guys feel all warmed up and ready. Something I want to teach you all first before we get down on the floor and we start working on our core is I want to teach you the stack. And I teach this to all my clients, whether they're coming in for a regular massage or whether they're coming in for pain and AMT treatments, so active myofascial therapy treatments, or even exercise. If I'm teaching you exercise, we're definitely going to talk about the stack. So if you don't know anything about the stack I'm talking about the stack of our ribs and our hips. So a lot of the times, prevention from back pain and even resolving back pain can come from realigning the spine or the pelvis underneath the rib cage. And what I mean is myself personally, I love to flare my ribs. I love to arch my back. I am a natural back bender. I have been since I was a child. And so my ribs being open allows, my stomach to spill out and it puts pressure on my low back. And now that I'm stronger now, I can really feel that. And so what I want you to watch out for when you're doing these exercises is that you're keeping your hips level. And so I would encourage you to take a moment and do a couple of cat cows, like kind of arch your back. And you can start at the hips and then find neutral position for you. And same thing with your upper body, arch your chest, round your back out a couple of times, and then find where your neutral is so that you're perfectly stacked ribs over hips. I like to use the analogy of a can. So if you were to take a regular old Coke can, it's emptied, but it doesn't have any dents in it or anything. It's perfect cylindrical can. And you put some books on top of that. That can's not going to get crushed. The can will be able to hold the book upright. But if I were to come by and poke a hole in it or flick it or damage the can in some way, the books are going to collapse. The same thing happens with our spine when we lose that stack. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't move our bodies and our spines around in all these different directions that we're supposed to be doing it. It just means when we're lifting heavy weight or when we're working, especially with clients, we need to really make sure that when we're in these lunge positions, we're not rounding our backs or arching our ribs as we're pushing and moving through those motions. So making sure you're keeping your stack through this exercise will help you to build the strength to keep your stack when you're working with clients. So let's get down on the floor. We're going to do the Big McGill 3. These are the 3 main workouts I recommend. And I've got an added bonus exercise for you today too. So I've got my mat out here and we're going to start laying down face up. Okay, we're going to start with the curl up. The curl up is done with your legs out straight. You can have your hands underneath your hips if that helps to support the natural curvature of your low back. But again, here, we want to make sure that we're not going to arch or tuck the back around as we move. So go ahead and lay down. Make sure that if you have a ponytail or anything, and that you move that out of the way so the back of your head can really be flat on the ground. So I've got mine up a little bit higher today. And then I want you to notice how your low back feels just laying here. If your low back is really arched up off the ground and it's creating pressure, maybe you want to pull it in a little tighter. If that makes your legs tense or lift, then go ahead and put your hands underneath your hips for this one. I'll show it without just so you can kind of see what happens. And then your other hand, if you don't have one hand underneath the back, you're going to use the other hand to hold and push onto the side abdominals here. And this is to give us some biofeedback so we understand what's happening. And what we'll do is we're going to start to raise the head up without allowing the low spine to change shape. And I already felt this right here turn on. My core is engaged. And I'm going to take 5 long, slow, deep breaths. Keeping that low back the same shape. And if this bothers your neck, you can take your hands back behind your neck just to help lift your head up a little bit and take the pressure off your neck. I think that this is way harder than it needs to be. So if you can, just lift that head up an inch or two off the ground. Make sure you're engaged here in the side abs, not just here in the rectus abdominis. So we want the obliques to turn on. We want transverse abs to turn on. 5 breaths and relax. And you can do that for 2 sets of 5 breaths, or just take it 1 set at a time. We're going to go ahead and move on to dead bugs. This is my absolute favorite exercise. It's not my favorite one to do, but it's my favorite go-to for those who have low back pain. And there's a lot of different variations. So if this variation doesn't work for you, let me know in the comments below, or feel free to come in for an appointment. So we'll start the dead bugs with the knees stacked over the hips. So I'm going to pull my belly in, and I'm changing the shape of my low back a little bit because I naturally like to arch my back. But I would encourage you to find neutral for your back. So if your back is really arched up off the ground, or you're pulling your legs in really close, as long as your low back is not bothering you, you are okay. So let's start with the knees over the hips. If this is too difficult, pull your knees in a little bit closer. You can have your arms up overhead. I don't like to add the arms where they go like this because I think it makes it a little more confusing. So what we'll do is, as we start to lower one leg, you're just going to take that nice long, slow exhale again, engaging that side belly. And depending on how strong you are, will depend on how low you can reach your leg out to. And remember, we don't want the low back to change shape through this motion. We're trying to keep a nice, still and steady low back. Long, slow exhale with every leg reach. If you want the challenge, you can add the opposite arm, the opposite leg. Now you see why they are called dead bugs. And we'll just do about 5 or 6 here, so 3 on each side. And then rest it down. And again, you can repeat this again as you start to get stronger. 2 sets of 6 to 8 to start. We're going to flip on over and we're going to do a bird dog. So I love to teach bird dog most of the time just because it's being done incorrectly. And it's really the same principle. We don't want the shape of our spine to change. So taking that moment again to make sure that you're not arching your back or you're not really rounding out, you're trying to maintain neutral. Same thing with the upper body. We don't want to lose and get protraction and retraction in the shoulders. We want to be somewhere in the middle. So being able to keep those arms nice and straight. And we'll start to extend a leg out back behind us. And all we're going to do is just lift it a ½ inch or so. And we're really flexing the toes towards the face, straightening the leg out as much as we can. And I want you to notice as the leg goes up high, you start to lose your core. Your back will arch. Everybody does it. If you're really flexible, maybe you can manage. Sometimes people like to bend their knees. That's fine too. But keep that core. Keep your stack through the whole motion. And what we'll do is we'll reach the opposite arm out. giving it a fist. So we're really reaching, really punching our arm forward, lengthening out. You can always lower it down if you need to, and switching. We'll switch 4 times for each side, so making it a total of 8. Deep breaths. Again, watch the shape of that low spine, keeping those arms nice and strong, pushing down into the floor. This is where you'll see my yoga training come out, because I like to do a little point flex with my foot instead of just flexing. So even I catch myself. If using the arm is too hard, you're always welcome to just do the leg portion and just make it a little easier on yourself. Challenge yourself too, though. It's good to have those challenging days. And we'll stop right there, shake it out, roll those shoulders around, maybe take a couple of cat-cows for a moment. Let that spine loosen after being in that same position. And then we're going to flip back on over and we're going to do a bridge. So I like to teach bridge a couple of different ways, but this way we're going to activate more of our core. And I want you to, again, focus on that low back space. So feet close into the butt, but not super tight. So just, hip distance apart. You might look down and make sure your knees and hips aren't wider than you think they are. And we're going to just start to engage the belly here. So give a nice little deep breath. And then we're going to lift the hips coming straight up. And you're going to notice here what happens at a certain point. If you lift up too high, you're going to lose your stacked position. Your back will arch and your stack, you will get anterior pelvic tilt. And so we're going to make sure that we're keeping everything nice in alignment, lowering down and lifting. So having nice strong glutes along with your core is extremely helpful. Bridge is amazing for this because it teaches the glutes how to work in unison with these core muscles. And if anything here, you might notice that you kind of have to posteriorly pelvically tilt a little bit to keep some of that stack. But if that's straining for you, don't do that. Just try to maintain as much neutral hip and rib position as you can. Deep breaths as you lift up. And we'll do about 8. And relax. Good. Shake that out. Drop the knees a little side to side. And we're going to come on up. We're going to grab our band. And we're going to get started with some arm exercises. So these are called W's. These are my favorite to do up against the wall. If you don't have a wall space, that's totally fine. This one's great for those who have winging scapula. And you're going to want to start with your hands about shoulder width apart. And then you're going to bend your elbows to about a 45-degree angle. If I turn to the side, this is 90, right? And then this is about 45. So when you look at yourself in the mirror, your hands are going to be about shoulder height, depending on your arm discrepancy length. And we're going to take that band, palms down, and pull out. You can grab this band several different ways. So if this is uncomfortable, you don't have to do it like this. If you're up against the wall, you'll be able to feel your shoulder blades pulling together. You should. And we're going to do this again 8 times. Just pulling out, making sure we're keeping the shoulders from pulling up to the ears. We're keeping them down nice and low, using these external rotators. I get super irritated having to work all day long in the other direction. Maintaining your core here, keep that nice healthy stack. And relax. Next, we'll go on to a deadlift. So I like to go from upper body to lower body, so then it gives my upper body time to recover. And you're going to want to step on the middle of your strap and make sure that it's kind of in the middle of your foot too, so that it doesn't come up and smack you in the face. So we're going to start by sending the hips back and soften the knees a little bit. So the knees don't have to, I don't want them to bend, because then this is a quad exercise. I want to make sure the butt goes back. And you're only going to lean forward as far as you can spread your butt cheeks back here to fold. So if that means that you have to stop right here, that is totally fine. You're going to go to your lowest point, and then you're going to tighten up on the strap. So grab a little bit lower down on that strap. That way when you try and sit up, you have that resistance. And we'll do that 8 times, spreading the butt cheeks and leaning forward. I like to use the analogy of the little bird that dips in the water. Those of you who are old enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Remember, his head goes down, but his butt pops out, his little tail feathers. That is exactly what we're doing here, 8 times. Spreading those butt cheeks, keeping the ribs stacked over the hips. Don't let your back arch any more than it needs to. Good, and 8. Very good. We're going to relax that. And we're going to move on to a lat pull down. So the way I love to do a lat pull down is with the band overhead. So you're going to hold that band up overhead. And depending on your arm length, you may not want to go straight up overhead, right? This is a little bit harder for the shoulders. It can also cause some impingement in here. So I like to tell people, keep it to where you can just see the band and strap in your peripherals. So if you look straight ahead and then you try to look up, you can just kind of see your hands up there. And then we're going to pull that strap down, elbow to hip. And we're going to alternate arms here. Pulling down. Exhaling as you pull, keeping the ribs over the hips. Soften those knees a little bit. They don't have to stay straight. Good. I'll do this 8 times. You can do 8 total or 8 on each side. I would recommend starting off 8 on each side, unless it's feeling like too much. We can always cut it in half. Listen to your body. All right, one more here. Good, and relax. All right, so we made it to the basic workout portion. I think that these 3 exercises are just absolutely killer. They're great to do before your clients because it keeps your arms and your legs in a position that you aren't normally working in. If you didn't learn anything else from this video, if anything, I hope you learned about the core. The core muscles are so, so, so important. And I want to make sure that you guys have a really good stack so that you can prevent further injury to your spine. Now, let's go ahead and get on some stretches. One of my favorite stretches to do is the doorway stretch. Because I don't have a doorway right where I'm at, you can also do this up against the wall. If you're in a doorway, you can bring your arms out to the side like this, or like this, depending on how tall or long your arms are. Step 1 foot forward and lean into the door. Again, trying to keep your ribs stacked so we're not arching the back, we're leaning forward and getting that external rotation of that humeral joint. You can also use a wall, turns out. So I'm going to place my hand flat on the wall, take my left arm or whatever arm you're using, you'll use the same leg, step it forward, and then start to rotate your torso away from that arm, getting a nice stretch all the way down through to the hand. And you want to hold these for at least 30 seconds, being as still as you possibly can. Inside of our muscles, there's the Golgi tendon organ. You guys remember that from anatomy? Its job is to send signals through to the rest of the cell. And if you're wiggling around while you're trying to stretch, your muscles aren't really truly going to relax. So sometimes when we work with clients, we really have to make sure that they understand this too, that it's very important that they are still and they feel comfortable and confident in what you're doing. And we'll switch sides. Again, you can do this in the doorway, hit both arms at the same time, or use the wall, whatever you have, stepping that opposite or same leg forward, and then just rotating the torso. So I'm using my core a little bit more here to rotate my torso. Deep breaths for 30 seconds. Good. And then our last two stretches, I'm going to grab my table, pull it out, and I'll show you how to do those against your table. All right. Depending on the height of your table will depend on whether this is going to work well or not for you. So I like to get into a little downward facing dog using my table. So just bring your hands to the side. It can be the side or the end position, whichever. You're going to hinge again at your hips. So you're kind of spreading your butt cheeks back here. And then you're going to walk your legs back until you can drop your chest in between your arms. So a little bit of modified downward facing dog. Still trying to keep the ribs pulled in a little bit. And you can do this single arm too. You can stretch through one arm or through another. And then we're going to shift our weight forward, and you can step a little closer if you need to. And we'll bring one leg to the table. So I'm going to start with just the knee on the table. And this is my right leg. So I'm going to rotate my whole leg out. So externally rotate that right femur. And we're doing a little bit of pigeon pose. This is modified, so you can bring your leg up onto the table more. You can bring your whole foot and leg up onto the table all the way. I like to kind of keep a little tibial comfort here, so no knee pain philosophy. And so just do what you're comfortable with as far as this knee angle goes. And then really slowly start to sink down into the table, just dropping that other leg back. And you can get a nice little stretch sometimes through this back leg too, just kind of sitting here. You can stay upright, doing a little back bending, or you can even try to, fold forward, let your back round and rest a little bit. We'll hold this for a good 30 seconds. Just taking some nice deep breaths. Good. And we'll push ourselves back out again. Hands underneath the shoulders. Just press yourself on up. Pull those ribs back. Take another little downward facing dog. You can, hold this one a little longer if you'd like this time, or go ahead and move on. And we'll do the other side. Just bringing that knee forward. And you can bring the knee towards the wrist, and that helps get the angle correct. And then start to help that leg up a little bit further. Just letting the hips sink down. You can keep your heel really close to your body, or if you're flexible, you can pull it a little bit further out. You can stay lifted again or fold it forward. And you can allow your back to round a little bit here too if that feels nice. Deep breaths, stretching that leg back if you want a little extra in that back leg. I hope you found this video helpful. Be sure that you like and subscribe. And again, if you know anyone who's suffering from chronic pain and they just haven't been able to get long-term relief from massage, or if you yourself are having difficulty, please feel free to contact me. Even if you're from out of state, I do video consultations, and there's a lot I can do just by watching you move and seeing your body mechanics through video. So if that's something that you're interested in, I will leave my link in my website below. Up at the top, you can schedule a consultation or evaluation. Evaluations, again, can be done in my office here, or I can meet you online and do them in home, wherever you are located. Thank you all again so much. I hope you appreciated it. Have a great rest of your day.